What's up everyone, Subterranean here, and today we're going to learn how to make this bass. Basses like these have been used in a lot of very recent dubstep tracks. They have sort of a metallic sound similar to your typical Terror Squad type of FM basses, but there's a little bit more of a pitch bending type of tonality to it. It's a little bit more raw and aggressive, and artists like Zomboy and many other producers have been using this type of bass in a ton of tracks as of late. So we're going to start by opening up Serum, and we're going to go to our menu, and we'll initialize the preset. And we'll get rid of these two external effects. We're going to be using those later. And now let's start with our first oscillator. We're going to go to the spectral category, and we're going to be choosing Monster 7. I'm going to pitch this up 2 octaves. And before we work on anything else with this sound, I'd like to mention that in the description box below, we'll have a link where you can download the full Ableton project file, along with a Serum preset, so if you don't have Ableton, you can just drop the preset into your instance of Serum. Let's tweak the little semitones panel right here. Let's see if we get a sound that we like. I think we'll go with +7. Let's also tweak with the wavetable position. Maybe 65. I think we'll go with 65. Now we'll take our LFO1, let's drag it onto the wavetable position. And that sounds nice, but it's a little bit too much movement for this bass, so let's scale that back. 21 should work well. Now let's go to our warp panel. We'll turn on sync no window, and let's also throw LFO1 onto here. And this is going to sound kind of weird right now. A bit too screechy, so once again we'll scale this back. We'll go for 28. Adds a little bit more squelch to the sound without making it ultra screechy and kind of annoying. Now, because we're going to be making an FM bass and we'll be turning on Oscillator B, let's take the level of Oscillator A and we'll just put that all the way down. And like I've said before in other FM bass videos, when you're making basses of this style, do not turn off the muted oscillator, just turn the level down. If you turn it off, then the bass is not going to work. Now we'll turn Oscillator B on. We're going to select Basic Shapes under the Analog category, which just gives us a clean, simple sine wave. Now we'll go to the warp menu here. We'll choose FM from A. And let's tweak with this knob, see if we get a sound we like. I like the sound I'm getting on 31%. Let's also modulate this with LFO1. Just drag that on. And I think we're going to need to scale this back as well. We'll go with 24. Now we'll take the level of this oscillator, put that all the way down. We'll drag LFO1 onto the level. And let's tweak with this. This is really just a volume difference, but I think we'll put it at 70. Now, I'm not really a fan of the default shape we get with LFO1, so I'm going to be using an LFO shape that I've already made. This is the getter shape that I made on my last tutorial video about the getter bass. You can see that I have the rate set at 1.4. We'll just leave it on there. Even though the pattern has the rate modulating at different speeds, we'll just leave it on 1.4 for now. We're going to go to the mode and we'll select trigger. And I think that sounds a lot better. Now we're also going to be using LFO2 for this bass, but we're only going to be using it during the effects. Let's just go to LFO2, and we're going to leave it on the default shape with the default rate, but we're going to take the mode and also change that to trigger. Now this sounds okay so far, but it's a bit bland, so let's turn on the filter. We'll send oscillators A and B through the filter, and let's select an HP12 under the multi category. Now let's leave the cutoff at the default position right here in the middle for now. We'll be tweaking that later. Let's put LFO1 onto the cutoff. And now we can tweak with the cutoff position. The reason why I left it in the middle at the start is so I can get this nice sort of wraparound going on with the LFO modulation. If you put the cutoff position somewhere different and then put the LFO on, then the modulation numbers would be different from how I originally made it, and it'd be a little bit harder to explain how it works. So now let's take the cutoff and we'll put it at about maybe 45 hertz. That should be good. Now we'll tweak with the modulation. I think 76 will be good. And let's also increase the resonance. Give it a little bit more of a vowelish sound. And I think we'll go with 47. And the only other thing we're going to do before we move on to the effects is we're going to take our master and we'll tune that down to 55%, just so things don't get too loud. Now let's move on to the effects. The first effect we're going to add on is going to be a filter, and we're going to drag that up all the way right here so it goes before any of the other effects. And the filter we're going to be using is going to be a reverb filter. This particular type of filter in Serum is essential if you want to make these very aggressive and metallic type of dubstep basses. It just makes things sound very unique. Let's take the cutoff and we'll tweak with its position. Let's go with 59 hertz. Now we'll take LFO 1, drag it on, and we're going to have some very subtle modulation going on, because if we play it right now with that full modulation going on, sounds a little bit weird, doesn't have that much of an effect. So let's drag this down a lot, and we'll go with 2. A lot of people would assume that you're modulating the pitch when you've made this bass because it has that type of sound, but that's just what the reverb filter tends to do when you modulate the cutoff, and it works really well. Now we'll take the mix of the filter, we'll turn it all the way down, then we'll throw on LFO 1, and we'll just leave it on this default modulation. Just gives it a little bit more of a clean sound. It's pretty subtle, and you don't really have to do this, but that's just what I did when I was originally making this bass, and I like the cleaner sound I got from it, so I'll leave it that way. Now we'll throw on hyperdimension. Let's take the mix and turn it down. We'll go with 23%. The mix on the hyper, that is, we'll put that at 23%. Now we'll turn up the mix for the dimension. 24% should be good, and let's decrease the size. I think maybe 11%. Yeah, we'll go with 11%. Now we'll turn on some distortion. We're going to use my favorite type of distortion. I use this on most of my basses. We'll turn on Diode 2. And let's put the drive down a little bit. 17% will work well enough. Now we'll throw on a flanger. We'll turn the rate all the way down. Let's take the depth knob and we'll put it at a different position. I think we'll actually just go with 99%. Then we'll take LFO 2. We'll actually do some backward modulation right here. Minus 45, that'll be good. And we don't want too much of this sound, so we'll turn the mix down just a little bit to 70% maybe. Yep, 70% works well. Now we're going to be doing basically the same thing with the phaser. We'll turn the rate all the way down as well as the depth, and let's find a good spot with the frequency. Putting it down just a little bit from the default at 580 hertz seems to work pretty well. Now we'll take our LFO 2, just drag it onto the frequency knob. We'll make it a little bit less drastic. I like it on 13. I think we'll just leave it there. And we'll turn the mix down a considerable amount. Maybe 40%. 40% works well. Now we'll turn on a compressor, and like always, we'll turn that into a multi-band compressor. Just click on the little button right here. And let's turn up the gain, get a little bit more of a powerful and compressed sound. Not too much though. I think we'll just go with 6.7 dB. And we're almost done with the sound right now. There's only 2 external effects we're going to add. The first effect we're going to add is going to be Ableton's default reverb. We'll just do our usual input processing. Let's turn off the chorus and make a low cut and high cut curve like we always do for our reverbs. Let's put the dry wet at something a little bit less severe. I'm thinking 20%. And let's increase the decay time just a little bit. We'll try 1.34 seconds. You can just type in 1340. and I think we'll leave it there. And the only other effect we're going to add on is going to be a third-party plugin. I use this plugin for a lot of my basses. Let's throw on an instance of Clip Shifter. And the only thing we're going to do here is we're going to take the in-gain and we'll increase it to 9.87 decibels. Bring out that reverb a little bit more and make the bass a little bit more loud and a little bit more powerful. And one small thing that I almost forgot to mention with the Effects and Serum is on the reverb filter, you're going to want to set the drive up to 12%, and you'll want to set the resonance up to 8%. Not a huge difference, but overall it makes the sound a little bit more punchy and aggressive, and I think it sounds a little bit better. This is what it sounds like with the resonance and the drive at default. And here's what it sounds like with the drive and the resonance increased. And there we have our sound. So that was my tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like this video and leave a comment as it really helps us out. And please subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.